there are two types of people that came into this ummah that have corrupted it greatly. The first are scholars who think that what they know is the only true thing, and they reject everybody else's opinions. And he said that these people are just a disaster for the religion, because tolerance of different opinions is very important in our tradition. And these are things that people fight over, things like Mawlid. And the Mawlid is a mukhtalaf fihi. The majority of scholars permitted it. Yeah, there are some scholars that didn't. So if you don't want to do the Mawlid, that's fine. You don't have to do it. It's fine. But leave the other people alone that want to celebrate the Prophet's birthday, because they have their proofs from the ulama. Imam Suyuti wrote a very famous fatwa about it in Al-Hawi. So it's just better. If you don't want to, that's fine. But don't say yours is the only opinion. Just say, this is what I think. I prefer this opinion. I recognize other scholars have said this. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. I saw a fatwa recently, because all fatwas say Allahu a'lam at the end. I saw a fatwa recently that just said, it didn't have Allahu a'lam. It just ended by saying, I'm right and everybody else is wrong. It was amazing. I was thinking, subhanAllah. Like, what is that? You know, there's little things you know when people aren't trained by real knowledge. I'm going to give you an example. If you see somebody put somebody before Malik, like they put al-Bukhari before Malik or Imam Ahmed, it's a sign that they're not trained. If you see them write S-A-L, what do they write? Sa'lam, you know, S-A-W, it's a sign they're not trained. The ulama said it's bukhl to do that. You don't even have the generosity to write the whole thing out. Muhaddithun considered it makruh to do that. You know? But those are little signs that you know that people, and if you don't know those things, then why are you writing? Go study. You know, there's no, the nice thing about our religion, there's no monopoly. Anybody can become a scholar if you're willing to put in the energy, the time. I mean, obviously you have to have some ability, but people can do that. But this need for everybody, I mean, this age that we're living in is so strange because everybody has to have an opinion. I mean, you should read, there was an essay written back in the 30s called Balderdash that was rewritten by a philosopher recently, and he entitled it BS, but the whole thing was spelt out. But it's an interesting argument, it's worth reading. He just argues, why is there so much BS out there? Like, why is the world filled with so much BS? And part of it, he just concludes that people think they have to have an opinion about everything. That people just can't say, I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. Why do I have to have an opinion? People ask me my opinion of Turkish politics. I don't know. There's people that get PhDs in Turkish politics. Go ask that guy. Why are you asking me? I read The Economist? I know something? I can't read Turkish, so I don't know what they're saying. I only know what these sinister people in England are saying about them, and I don't trust them, right? I mean, do you really trust somebody that writes for The Economist, you know, or Time, or Newsweek? Like, you trust these sources? The New York Times, all the news is fit to print according to us, right? So, I mean, if you don't know something, just say, I don't know. La adri. There's no shame. The shame is in like espousing opinions about something you know nothing about. We all do it at one time or another. I'm guilty of it just like everybody else. But you should at least regret it. Like, why did I say anything? I shouldn't have said it. I should have just said, I don't know. Why did I say anything? Right? And then you can have opinions, like you can be read about things. I have certain opinions about things that I've read about. I have opinions about homeopathy or allopathic medicine or acupuncture, or maybe they're true, maybe they're not. You know, the whole world is so weird, right? It's really, there's so many weird things out there. I don't know. You know, the only thing, like I'm certain, some people, modern people don't like this man. I'm certain that this man got it right. Like I'm certain about it. That's how I feel about him. I trust him as a source. I know some of his hadiths are weak, Some of them are even considered fabricated. I know that. I'm aware of that. But I never saw any hadith that I always liked them. Even the ones that were considered fabricated, they seem wise sayings at least. But maybe they shouldn't be attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. If you know they're not, then they shouldn't be. But usually al-Iraqi said, "Lam ajid lahu asla." He has adab with the Imam. He says, I didn't find any source for this. The modern ones, you know what they write? La asla lahu. There's no source for it. How do you know? What? You learned all the hadith? You learned all 55,000 hadith? MashaAllah, with all the essay, and then all the hadith that were lost in our history during the Mongol invasion, all those books that were lost. You learned all those? MashaAllah. It's like the man who in Imam Abu Dawood's book, Aridat al-Ahwadi, about Tirmidhi, it's in Tirmidhi's collection, about Imam Zuhri was in the masjid, and Aisha relates a hadith that the Prophet did one taslima. It's a weak hadith in Tirmidhi, but the Malikis took the action, because in Medina, they only did one taslima. They said, Assalamu alaikum, one time. That was the action of the people of Medina. Imam Malik says, that's stronger than ahad hadith for me. These solitary narrations from other places. I found all the tabi'een doing this in Medina. They got it from the Sahaba got it from the Prophet. This is what I'm going to do. That's his methodology. So Az-Zuhri, who's his teacher, he's one of Malik's teachers, he saw a man say, in Medina, he's in the masjid, he said, Assalamu alaikum, Assalamu alaikum. He did it twice. He said, called him up. He said, where'd you get that taslima from? So the man was from Iraq and he was knowledgeable. He said, an fulan, an ibn Mas'ud. He said, I don't know that hadith. Zuhri, he said, I don't know that hadith. So the man said, do you know all the hadith? He said, no. He said, do you know 2/3 of the hadith? He said, no. He said, do you know half of the hadith? He said, yes. He said, put it in the half you don't know. And so, ضحك الزهري, Imam Zuhri laughed. He had a good sense of humor. He didn't get angry. He said, yeah, you're right. But these guys, no, we know everything. We've got Google. We can search the hadith. Oh, it says it's not there. My goodness. It's amazing. Seriously, they check the Google hadith. They think that's it. Because it's not on Google, it can't be a hadith. I'll do the muraqabah. This is a question about muraqabah when I do the Ibn Ashur, inshallah. What can we do to make sure that knowledge does not start to lose its effect? Well, I mean, we have to تعرضوا لنفحات الله. It's you have to have the raqa'iq, those things that ترقق القلب, things that are brittle on the heart. Reading the tabaqat is important. Reading about the righteous is important. Reading the seerah is important. The Prophet said, if you can't cry, at least pretend to cry when you're alone, because that can affect the heart. Even like actors, when they cry, they think about negative things that they've experienced or something. They can bring tears. And some are very good at it, others aren't. So, that's a practice. It's a spiritual practice to do that. But that's when you're alone. It's not like when you're in everybody's crying, so you think you should be crying too. Allah, adhaka wa abka. He makes you cry, He makes you laugh. Allah does that. We can't control the heart in that way. But the Prophet ﷺ said to make dua when you're crying. So if you start crying about anything, like your cat dies, you start crying, it's a time to make dua because the heart is open. That's what tears are. They're a sign that something cracked inside the heart. And that's the tears spill out. And there's a statement that Allah is with the brokenhearted. I mean, He designed the world to break our hearts because He's with the brokenhearted. So the world is literally designed to break our hearts. And so when people let you down, just accept it and know that they were designed to let you down. The only one that won't let you down is Allah, and then by extension, His Prophet ﷺ, because He's acting on His behalf, and all the prophets.
I had a question about adab from the student to the teacher. In a lot of cases, the teacher does not want to be shown adab. So what is the student supposed to do?
I think, a lot of this is urf. Okay, so you have customs. We're Western people by and large, and we probably err on the side of not having a lot of respect for elders, that's the type of culture that we live in. For those people that have come from South Asia, there's a lot of adab in the South Asian culture traditionally, even in the language. The Malay culture, to say a bad person in Malay is bi adab. They don't have any adab. So that's a pretty negative thing to say about somebody. So those things go under urf. And then the ulama are different, the students of knowledge. Like those of us teaching here, unfortunately, we used to have much bigger scholars like Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayya. We're really more students of knowledge. I consider myself a student of knowledge. The people here, Imam Afroz, we don't have any claims. We're students of knowledge. Alhamdulillah, we've been fortunate to be able to learn and sit with masters. But I'm not saying this out of humility. I'm really not. I am not saying this out of humility. I know what I know in relation to what Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayya knows. Outwardly, inwardly, God knows the difference. But outwardly, I can't even compare myself as a drop, because I know what he knows. I know the minhaj, I know what they studied, I know what he memorizes, and I've spent a lot of time with him and asked him a lot of questions. I know what Shaykh Salih al-Ghursi knows, who's here in Kunya. I read his books, so I know what you're looking at. So those people, maybe when I'm 70 or 80 years old, if I ever get that old, then you can kiss my hand or whatever. Then it's just old age, and it's just a nice thing to do for old people anyway, right? Not just the scholars, just because they made it. In this planet, you get to be 80, you deserve, that people stand up for you. So, but, people have good adab. Everybody here has good adab. I haven't seen any bad adab. Really, I haven't seen any bad adab. Don't think you have bad adab. Inshallah, you're all good people and you have good adab. But we have to be wary of obsequiousness, this kind of slavishness. Some of our cultures have overdone that thing, and it's not a healthy thing for the people, for the teacher. It's just not healthy. The Prophet said it's enough of a fitna for people to say, oh, there goes fulan when he passes by. It's a fitna. And those are real. So we should be aware of that as well. The best respect you can show to a teacher is to apply what they've taught you. That's the best reward that you can give a teacher, is to apply, because he's going to get a reward for that. If you apply what he taught you, he's going to get a reward for that. So that's how I would look at it, And then we should, if the teacher doesn't have respect for you as well, one of my favorite stories, and this really had a profound effect on me personally. I read a book by one of the scholars from al-Ahsa who spent a lot of time with Habib Abdullah al-Haddad, the great mujaddid of Hadramaut. And he said one day they went to this village and they prayed Fajr at the masjid. And when they came out, they stayed until shuruq. And when they came out, all the people came out, and he stayed and he greeted every single one of them. And when they left, the man turned to him and he said, Habib, you could have just waved to them, they would have been happy, but each one you greeted separately. And he said, why were they waiting there, each one, wanting to greet me? He said, because they think you're close to God. And he said, shouldn't I reciprocate? Shouldn't I think that about them? There's a beautiful saying that attributed to the Prophet, لا خير في صاحب لا يرى فيك ما ترى فيه. There's no good in a companion that doesn't see in you what you see in him. And if you look at this, there's people here that, you might not have the outward knowledge. Alhamdulillah, I've been afforded time. People have helped me in my life. I had 10 years, people supporting me. When I went to the Muslim world, people supported me. I was very fortunate. A lot of people want to study, they don't have that opportunity. And that was a gift. And people have helped me to study and read and do those things. But there's people that don't they could know God, bi'alam billah, even though they don't have a lot of that. No, that's what he said, the three. You have a scholar who doesn't know God, but he knows the rulings of God. And then you have a knower of God, but he doesn't know the rulings of God, other than what he needs for his fard ayn. And then you have the one that knows both, and that's the siddiq, that's a high maqam. So we don't know who's close to Allah. We don't know. That's something Allah has hidden in His creation, and we should just, when you meet people, you should just assume good things about them. And even the bad ones you meet, the door of Tawbah might come to them at some time. They might actually be beloved of God even in their odious state at the time. Because Allah is not in time. He knows the reality of people. He knows their essences. And Omar was beloved of God when he was, an idolater in Mecca. He was still beloved of God. Because he was Omar. He's not Omar in these states. I mean, this is a khilaf in the Maturidi and the Ash'ari schools, but I incline towards that opinion, that it's Sa'id fi batni ummihi or Shaqi fi batni ummihi. So it's, there's a khilaf about that. Do you say ana mu'min insha'Allah, or do you say ana mu'min? And it's based on the hal and the ma'al, and it's a khilaf amongst the theologians.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
You were just saying about scholars who goes to ruler and opposite.
Yeah.
What about scholars who become ruler?
A scholar who becomes ruler? Well, again, it's niyyah. Like, to be honest with you, and I understand why they did that, and there's definitely big dangers of that, but people need to also be in these places. I don't want to be that person, but there are people that have to engage these people, and there are always going to be scholars that go and are with the rulers. Some of them have good intentions, other ones just want the dunya. There's people that, it's better to think well of them. But if I would rather have a knowledgeable person in power than an ignorant person, right? I'd rather have a scholar in power than somebody who's not, because knowledge is a light, and it might help them or guide them. So. But power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. And the Prophet, there are hadiths that indicate in al-Quran wa sultana sayaftariqani. The Quran and the authority are going to go separate ways. Faduru haythu dar al-Quran washtanibu sultan. Go with the Quran and avoid the sultan. And that's the best policy. But there are people that, for me personally, like Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayya, I've seen him go in. He definitely doesn't do it on a regular basis, and he doesn't like to do it. And I've seen how agitated he gets, because I know his level. But he always has a niyyah when he goes in, and he doesn't go seeking anything from them, but he goes with the intention of nasiha. He's a whole other level for me, because he's been just working on his nafs for decades. And he's in his 80s. He's not, at which point, he doesn't, there's nothing in dunya he wants. His house, he could have a very nice house. If you go to his house in Jeddah, you'd be amazed. He lives in the same house he's been in for the last, 30 years. Right? If he wanted to have a big house and everything, he could do all that. He doesn't care. His favorite place is a tent in the Mauritanian desert. That's where he feels most happy when he goes. He told me recently he just wants to leave the world and go teach children Quran, And we're the ones pushing him. Like, we're literally, no, Shaykh, you have to stay. We're the ones pushing him. He's like, in Mauritania, the ulama, when they get in their later age, they really tend to just disengage from the world. But there's so few scholars out there of his caliber. I don't see any really. I haven't met any Sunni scholars that I would consider at his caliber. And I know a lot of them. And I've read their books. So, there might be some in certain knowledges, but in terms of the comprehensive level, I haven't met anybody at his level, personally. And that's not because he's my sheikh. No, he's my sheikh because of that. Literally. I'm not saying that because he's my sheikh. He's my sheikh because I believe that. Or I would go and find somebody else. But somebody like Dawood Aulu, I'm glad he's foreign minister. I'd much rather have a philosopher as a foreign minister than some idiot. Seriously. And he loses sleep at night. I mean, he asks us to make dua for these Turkish diplomats that were taken by these people in Iraq. And everybody's clamoring about the Yazidis, and it's a crime against the Yazidis. The Yazidis have been there for centuries, and the Muslims left them alone. They're not devil worshippers. It's an amalgam of different, Christianity and Islam and Zoroastrianism. But nobody cares about the Muslims. There's been tens of thousands of Muslims killed by these people. Or the Shia Muslims, they're killing Shia Muslims.